Hello, everybody. Welcome to Film Family. And today, we thought we'd, this is an important thing. We've had this channel for like a little over 4 months now, and I think it's important to describe our rating system and how it works. Each of us individually have sort of different ways to rate a movie. So this is just something we want, going forward, people to like know about each of us, how we rate a movie and why we give the movies ratings we do. So I think Taj wants to go first and describe his system.
I'll go first. I thought about this yesterday because I was like, okay, I know there's a method to my madness. I know I'm not just picking out numbers. I'm thinking about them and going where they fit in. A 10 for me is a classic, and not only a classic, it's a classic that I would never touch. It's not. Each frame is perfect in a way where I feel like if someone said, let's do an edit of it or let's do a director's cut, I'd be like, no, do something else. That's a 10 for me. That means like the movie as a whole, I can't think of where it could falter. And Shawshank Redemption, E.T., there's certain movies where I'm just like, okay, I don't want you to touch it ever. Don't do a remake. Don't touch it. And a 9 is very similar to that. It's a classic, but it's also they could have got rid of this, or it's a little slow here, but it's really a good movie. It's somewhat flawed. Let me go back to the 10. Jurassic Park is a 10. Okay, Jurassic Park lives today. You look back at the CGI and the animatronics, and you're like, that thing still holds up.
So I have a question for you. So if you saw a movie, when you were younger, and you called it a 10 back then, and I don't mean younger as a kid. I mean, like, let's say when you were an adult 10 years ago, and you were saying
goes to 9.
that I think this movie was a 10, and then you watch it in the special effects or something,
9.
It just looks a little predated. 9. Do you change it?
Yep. Okay. It's a 9 now, because now I'm looking at it through other people's eyes, through the new current audience's eyes. That's why Jurassic Park will be a solid 10, because the effects live up today. I mean, I can't look at it and go, oh, that looks fake. There's not one frame where I'm like, oh, that was fake.
So you do believe that movies can be redeemed, or whatever the opposite word of redeemed is?
Yeah, definitely. Or they can go up. I mean, Jurassic Park is one. So that's why that is a solid 10. A 9 would be something like, it's like my memory said it was a 10, but then now I saw it again. I'm like, oh, damn, it's a 9. Because there's one thing wrong with it, and so I can't give you really an example of a 9, but there are a couple of 9s that I would probably say that.
No, I have to. You just
because we'll be here forever. Yeah. But an 8 is something where it's like, it's something that I'm happy I saw. Like, if someone said, did you waste your time or whatever, it's like, no, I'm glad I saw that, because it's part of my vocabulary, my film vocabulary, and it's something I would recommend for others to see, to waste their time, to go to a movie and see. A 7 is kind of, for me, catch it on cable kind of thing if you want to. It's not, don't drive to a theater, but just catch on cable if you want something to watch. It's not, I mean, it's still entertaining, but it's not something that if I didn't see it my whole life, I wouldn't have been upset. That thing. Then I go down from there. Just like a 5 is average. I'm not going to skip 6. So 6 is in between 5 and 7. Okay. A 5 is average in terms of like, I have really no, like, it's just like it was there, and anything under a 5 that is basically don't see it. Like, it really is, in my nice way of saying it, it's just degrees.
It's just smaller words. Well,
of don't waste your time or whatever. A 5 also, between a 5 and a 6, means I felt I could do better. Yeah. Like, in terms of like me currently, I'm like, oh, I could have done a better movie than that.
Okay. So you said 1 through 4 is degrees of badness.
Degrees of don't watch.
Have you ever given a movie a 0? Because I don't know if
I can't do that. Even like the worst movie.
Yeah.
Even the worst. I've seen some really bad.
I can show you some bad.
I've seen them. You know why? Because I respect that the movie got made.
Yeah.
Once I do my first movie, I'll start giving out 0 because I'm like, okay, I did, but I don't feel like I deserve to give out a 0 because I haven't made a movie yet. Yeah. That's the thing. That's me. Like,
all right. So Prince.
So I review my movies based on the context of the genre for it.
Good point.
Because when I watch movies, I like it to be entertaining. Uh-huh. So if I'm going to see a horror movie, I'm not looking for the greatest acting or the greatest story. Point, yeah. I'm looking for, was I scared and was it believable? So I think for me, the main thing that I look at is acting, writing and dialogue and the directing, and that kind of is all genres. And then my rating system is how much did I enjoy watching that movie. So like a 10, I agree, is a classic. Doesn't matter what it is. I think it's going to be around for a while. So just to give you an example, for like in horror movies, for me, it's like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Insidious, because I think that no matter what, they're going to be good. They're going to be scary. I agree with the same movies you said, like Jurassic Park for the 10s. The 9s, I would say I had a really good time watching. It may even surprised me a little bit. And an 8 is, I agree. I think that it was good to go see in theaters. And you definitely should see it then. 7 is kind of on the borderline. Like maybe you might like it more than I did. Maybe you won't, but you should see it. And then a 6 is like,
that's where it starts.
if you have time, go see it. And then from there, it's just kind of downhill.
All right, yeah. So for me, I think there's words to describe each of them. I'm gonna start from 5, just to say, and I'm like going a little more in depth. So a 5, I would say is, I don't know what's the proper word for this. I'm just gonna say average, or a little below average. 6 is mediocre, 7 is good, 8 is great, 9 is spectacular, fantastic, amazing, all those adjectives. 10 is like classic, masterpiece, magnanimous, all those, $4 word type things, where it means a little more than just great. And so, so a 10, I'm going to talk about that. I'm just going to go on a little rant here. So I was talking with my friends one time, and I was getting really mad because I was saying, like, a movie I could give, like, movies that I would give 10 to. Because I do give a lot of movies 10s, actually. And they were like, oh, you can never give a movie 10 because you never know if something's better going to come out. And I was like, well, eventually, your time on this planet's going to end. You're going to die. So time will never stop while you're alive unless you're like alive when time stops. And you're never going to be able to like answer a question definitively. That's like saying that if you're sitting here at this train station, that like a train that is faster will never come by because, this one is like the fast. It just doesn't make sense.
Is this a philosophy class?
No,
Jesus,
listen.
What are we getting into?
Listen. And it's just not going to make sense by judging a movie by like, oh, something better might come out because at that time, at that moment, you could say a movie's 10. So I believe that there's no perfect movie. Every movie has a shot or a line that's not perfectly acted or a shot that's not, perfectly shot. And I don't think that matters. I think a good example for this is The Godfather. I was watching The Godfather for the first time, like, relatively recently. And, obviously I've heard so much hype about this movie. And I was like, this is an incredible movie. I see why people call it, one of the greatest films ever made. But there's a scene in this movie where it's Sonny, who's like the stepbrother's beating this guy up. And there's like, he punches him and like, you can see that his punch cleared it. And the guy's like, oh. And I was like, that looks so stupid. But, everything else in that movie's pretty solid. But I'd still give that movie a 10 with no doubt because one little thing can't ruin a whole movie. So I try to look at...
Can I stop you real quick?
Yes.
Would you, as a director, if you're Francis Ford Coppola, would you fix that? Like, if you right now, would you sneakily?
George Lucas altered his movies.
Francis Ford Coppola just that one shot. Just make it so that it connects. Would you?
I think it's really subjective. A lot of like Ridley Scott with Blade Runner, people do go back and alter their work. Like,
would you as a director?
Would I do it? Yes,
I would
if it
too.
Would look like that. That was a stupid.
That's a.
It matters the degree.
Yeah, sorry about that. I just wanted to make sure.
No, it's fine. Yeah,
I just learned. So I didn't know you could do that. That's
George Lucas.
Like years later, you can doctor
George Lucas.
100%.
The Star Wars movies you grew up on, the DVDs, like those are changed.
Really?
Yeah, they're not the theatrical cuts.
Yeah. Wow. From lightsabers.
Because at the end of the day, it's like
that's pretty crazy.
If you drew a painting, you're a painter, and like when nobody's looking, you might be like, I'm just gonna take that. Nobody's gonna notice that, but that's gonna eat at me, and so I'm gonna move.
Well, they do that in music too. They remix stuff to make it sound better.
Exactly. So back to what I was saying. So I think the way I judge movies, because I like the way he said about a genre, but I judge movies about like A, how is their budget, and like how should I judge the movie, like, and B, like how do I view this movie as a film, and how do I view this as a movie? Because those are two different words.
So you're telling me the intention of the filmmaker doesn't matter, or the money behind it?
It does. The intention. I said the budget, and the intention definitely matters. And like I said, like I can't really like make fun of Angel Has Fallen because I know that they're not trying to make a great film, and like I still don't think it was a great movie either. But it's not a movie I would give like a 0 or anything because of that, because I know their intention. Now, there's one other thing I was gonna say. So the word objectivity, that means something is a fact. This is objectively black, at least from the way we say, we define black. Now, if I was gonna say, in my opinion, this objectively looks a little like light black, and that's my opinion. I call that subjectively objective. Now, when I say in a movie it's objectively well shot, that's because in my subjective opinion, it's objectively well shot. But somebody, you can never judge a movie by saying it's objectively well shot, because objectively means fact. Therefore, you can't, label that as fact. So
can we just simplify this and say that your opinion is subjective, and any time you rate something, it's in your subjective opinion?
But I think there's a difference between me judging a movie subjectively objective and subjectively. Like a movie like from the 50s, like that I just didn't enjoy, I can be like, that's a well-made film on an objective level, but I didn't like it subjectively. So that's all I was trying to say. Yeah,
I got you.
Like Seventh Seal, it's this movie from the 50s I watched, and it's a very well-made movie, but I would never watch it again. A Clockwork Orange, very well-made movie. I don't like it in any way at all. So, it's those types of things. And if you look at a movie like Avengers, like, it's not an objectively perfect film or incredibly made movie, but I love it, and so I'd probably give it like a 10 because there's not much I would change about it. And so that's, I guess, what I was trying to get at. And like you said with the 10, I could give a movie a 10 if there was nothing I would change about it. Now, if there was a little choice in it that I don't necessarily agree with, I would give it a 9. But there's no movie that's perfect, but you have to look at it from the perspective that the person who made that movie made that choice, and you didn't make that movie. So if you say, I don't think this character should have done this, the director clearly didn't just do that by not thinking about it. They thought about it. So you can't judge a movie by the choices that the director made, unless they're like blatantly bad. So yeah, that's just kind of how I'd say it. 9, just a really good movie, just a couple of small things, critiques, usually not big. I think 8, you guys undervalued a little bit. 8's a great movie. It's just like a little bit less.
8's
good
or
than
you should
9.
go see in theater.
Yeah.
For
I
sure.
think 8 has maybe just one fundamental thing that you might disagree with, or maybe one thing about a character or something that you don't like. But then 7's where you get that awkward balance, because a 7, like, I had a movie that I gave a 6 at first when I watched it, and I was like, I didn't like it, and then I switched to a 7, and because there was something I liked about it when I was, when I rewatched it. But you can't really give an 8, because an 8 through 10 to me is like a higher tier of film, and a 7 through 6 is like a middle tier, and then a 5 through 1 is a lower tier. That's how I look at it.
Nice.
And then every now and then, like, I give movies like a 7.3 or something, and people might wonder why. That's just because my heart tells me to do that, I don't really have any other way to describe it besides I just feel like that's the way I should read it.
The decimal numbers are on merit, because they
just
tried a little bit harder within that
ranking. At the end of the day,
ranking.
because like if I give a movie a 7.6, couldn't you be like, hey, why don't you give it a 7.7? We don't want to get that much into semantics. My heart told me to give it a 7.6. So yeah. And like what we were saying, there's plenty of films that I call perfect that plenty of people might call awful. And, that's just how it goes. I just think that when you're judging a movie, the one thing is to never base your judgments off of how other people perceive it. It's
100%.
your viewing of a movie, and you should not,
I have a great
falter.
segue from that then.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So let's do a little exercise. Are you ready? I'm going to basically tell them how I think you guys review movies. I think, like, for example, I think we don't sit in the way that we do. I think BG is the actual critic of movies. You're somewhere in the middle. And then I'm just I just want to be entertained by movies. You know what I mean? So how would you say that I and Taj, like, is that a pretty accurate depiction?
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I mean, like, I think Taj is the nice side of the three of us, but I also think
I'm the most lenient.
You have the least, like, you're looking at, like, not from a film perspective, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's just that's just how you are. I think Taj, like, as somebody who's made movies, he, like, looks at it on a filmmaking level, but a lot of the time, Taj is very lenient just because he knows how hard it is to make a movie. And as somebody who's, like, made some, small movies, I realize that how hard it is to make a movie. So I always do give a movie a credit for just being created, but I don't know if there's a movie I would give a 0, but I'm sure there's something out there.
There's something that probably deserves a 0.
Yeah, but there's. Sorry, I was just gonna say really quickly, and like just going back to that subjectively objective. There's like scenes of I've heard people say like there's a great scene of dialogue, and I remember just being like I just think that's a bad scene. So there are rules you set for yourself, standards like on an objective level, based on your opinion, even though it's kind of an oxymoron. And then there's things you look at that you're just like that's just cool. And I just like that because it's in this movie.
We really need to rewatch Justice League so we can rank that, because I would really like to see.
That would be like a litmus
we're definitely gonna do
litmus
that.
test of
We're
what we all are on.
I think we've like hyped it up at this point. People want to see it. Don't worry, it's gonna be a good one.
I think you guys both said it best. Like both of you guys said a point that I totally forgot, which is I do kind of have between 7 and down. I have a sliding scale of what the budget is. Like I'm very lenient if the budget is not where.
That was one of the reasons me and you like so adamantly hated Justice League. He didn't like.
That's what I said when you said Justice League.
We looked at the $300 million budget and was
that's
like,
when
you
it's
took
like,
that
wait a
amount of
minute.
money and made this.
Yeah.
Oh my god! And I just got angry. So those types of outside factors do sometimes count in.
Influence you, yeah.
And I think like a movie like Apocalypse Now, I think I like a little more because I know how hard it was to shoot. So those types of things, they shouldn't affect a movie too much. But if it's something like a budget, it's fundamentally a part of the film, even if it's not on a superficial level or on the level of the movie, that should be accounted in somehow.
Okay, but do you think that the difficulties that go into filming a movie give it merit to go higher? Like, for example, Revenant is a really good movie.
Yeah,
but because it was filmed in the snow like that,
Use
and they had
natural
to
lighting
switch,
and a lot of stuff,
do you think that makes you rank it higher?
It's the
Because
thing
of
about
the
your
technical
subconscious
stuff?
because you might be like, let's say for the sake of this argument, you gave Revenant an 8 when you watched it, and then I told you all those things. You're like, oh, cool, and you never thought about it again. And then one day you're talking to me, and I was like, what do you give the Revenant? You're like a 9, and your brain never even remembered that you gave it an 8, but subconsciously your brain told itself that that's cool and that's a good thing to do in a movie, so it bolsters this movie. Sometimes your brain will subconsciously do that, and sometimes you'll do that while actively knowing. So I think it does vary, but for me personally, I will give a movie merit if I know how well or it was shot or how just impressive it was for the time or whatever it is. So those factors sometimes do matter, sometimes it don't.
Yeah, that's a good point. I liked what you said about genre, like that, because I totally forgot. I am a sliding scale when it comes to genre. I have a weakness for horror movies. Like they don't,
They need help. They can't stand on their own.
They're the beginning genre. Like that, most great directors, they'll dive into horror first because it's one of those forgiving genres. I do have my classics that I do think are like really good movies, like Halloween and stuff like that. But overall, I've been very lenient on horror. I'll always be lenient on horror movies and certain low budget comedies, like that are like
it's just things that you adjust your rating scale based on what you're watching.
When I'm watching in genre, like Fast and Furious, I'll be lenient because I know that when I say I know the audience they went for, if that means that they didn't try and get anyone else. They said, this is our target audience. This is who we're going to go for. Pootie Tang was definitely for a certain audience. They knew who they were going for.
That movie.
Oh, you never heard of that movie? Oh, you
Pootie
guys,
Tang?
maybe we'll review it one day.
I'm
Pootie Tang is a movie that definitely, as it sounds, was for a certain audience. And I love it for that because it was a merit. It's like, okay, we're going for this audience and that's all we care about. And so that's what I'm saying in terms of in general. If you know the audience you're going for and you hit that audience and you've made back your money, and you can make another one, like we talked about that.
Yeah, and I think the one other thing too is your emotional connection to a movie. I think
good point.
Avengers Endgame is not like when I rewatched it, I still think it's an incredible movie, but I think like the pacing and structure could have been improved a little bit, but like that didn't really matter because I got to see Captain America lift Mjolnir, and like that's for me on an emotional level meaning something. And if you watch a movie that you have a personal connection with, that varies. And an opposite example of that is Space Jam, a movie I adored as a child. We watched it and was like, oh my god, this killed my childhood.
It's nostalgic eyes. You see it with nostalgic glasses, and you take them off. Avengers Endgame, I actually rewatching it or watching certain scenes, I actually would have ranked it a little higher because when I saw the Captain America, with the Avengers Assemble, that thing and I just saw the framing, like without just all the characters and everyone, and here this person's here and this person's there, and like this is a scene that we've been waiting for X amount of movies. Yeah, it's like it made me appreciate it more, and so I don't know. It's weird how things work.
No, I get it. Yeah, and then the last thing I guess I'll say is that. Like I said, how I judge movies, like a lot of times I'll look at like a script or something and be like, in my opinion, that's objectively a poorly way to write it. But if it's a movie, like I'm really just liking the vibe of it or something, and I might be like, I don't really care because I like this movie. But that often, I think I do a fair job at like judging a movie both ways. But like a movie like Transformers: Dark of the Moon, rewatching that movie was tough because that is a poorly made movie. But I still like it because I remember like seeing it as a kid and really liking it. So. Again, movies vary based on how they make you feel. At the end of the day, this is an art form. It's supposed to touch your heart. It's supposed to make you think, cry, laugh, have fun with your friends, whatever. It's an important art form, and cinema is just great that it even exists. But I just think that when rating it, you should really ask one question: is like, how does this movie make me feel? And that I think should be your base thing. But there's more deeper things you can go into on film criticism on like why do I dislike or like this movie?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Any last thoughts?
I mean, that's it. I mean, So now you know why we rate the movies the way we do.
Yeah.
Can acting save a movie for you
guys?
Say? Acting, can it save a movie for you?
Yeah, well, I think there's
I think it can break the movie more than it can save.
I think there's bad scripts and great acting and vice versa, because at the end of the day, a script, I always have thought, even more than direction, has been the most important thing.
Yeah,
in a movie.
for
'Cause
me
you
it's
have
the script
an
too.
incredible script. Like even like a decent actor could make that movie really good because they're like solid acting, is good. But when you get your masterpieces, a masterpiece is everything coming together, from the cinematography to the music to the acting to the directing to the writing to everything else. And those are like my favorite movies. So yeah, I think it just varies a lot, And we'll probably even mention some of these things when we're reviewing a movie, just to make contextual sense for why we're rating something. And like we all gave I think Shaft an 8. And like, I don't know, on a film level, Shaft is probably not an 8. It's probably a little lower. But I had a really fun time seeing Shaft. So
That's where I go with demographic and kind of knowing what it was.
They knew what it was and where it
Yeah,
needed to
and
be.
it had
They
fun.
tailored it to that audience,
Yeah.
and entertaining to watch.
And I was
we
part
all
of that
had fun.
audience.
Exactly. So yeah, thanks for watching, and like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.